Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Jive Talking coming to you from Jolly Roger Sailing Club, where sailors, I messed up my own tagline, where pirates come to play. Well, today we're going to do a show on the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and I'm going to let everyone here introduce themselves and what their function is there. So we'll start to my left.
All right, my name is Becky Allmiller. My function for the Coast Guard Auxiliary is we're in District 091. Our flotilla number is Division 1613, and we work with the Coast Guard Station Toledo. Items I do for our flotilla is operations, which allows me to take my boat for patrol orders with the Coast Guard. I do information systems, and that is logging in all of our work that we do as individual members into a website. And I also do vessel examinations for any wreck boater that will give me permission to come on their boat and check for safety.
Thank you.
I'm Christopher Haley, Vice Flotilla Commander for 1613 here in Toledo. Also the Diversity Officer. Fairly new to the auxiliary, been in for about a year and a half. Still learning how things work, but it's been a great experience so far.
Okay.
And I'm Kathy Slaybaugh. This year I'm the flotilla commander for the Toledo Flotilla. I just finished off a stint of being the Commodore for our region, which runs from Marblehead to Duluth, Minnesota.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. And when I have an easier job this year as flotilla commander. So also in the flotilla, I'm the human resources officer and member training. I'm also a district level member training officer. So in the auxiliary, we have local flotilla units, then several flotillas make up a division, and then several divisions make up a district. And in the Great Lakes, there's three. The Great Lakes is divided into three districts for the Coast Guard Auxiliary to mirror active duty.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is. I put in about 75 to 100 hours a month, but I'm crazy. I'm crazy and don't.
That's a volunteer job, right?
It is.
And 75 to 100 hours a month.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're passionate about something, it doesn't seem like letting me that much time. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
And it sounds like you're passionate by the way you were talking.
Absolutely. You know, I've been in the auxiliary for 15 years and really latched on. I didn't know that it existed, but within 30 days of finding out that it existed, I joined up. I was one of those people that when I was younger, I missed an opportunity to join a military service.
Okay.
And so finding out about the auxiliary and realizing what we could do, that really fit the bill. And I think that's a similar experience to Chris.
How did you find out about the auxiliary? Let me just ask that.
I was Googling and was about military service.
Okay.
And something just came up about the auxiliary. And I grew up in Indiana, so the Coast Guard wasn't big in Indiana. But I was living in Toledo at the time when I discovered that, and I'm like, all right, well, there's Coast Guard here, and I could participate.
Do they have Coast Guard in Indiana? I mean, now you said not big. I mean,
Michigan City, off of
yeah,
Lake
well, that's on
Michigan,
the lake. Yeah, I
little
forgot
itty
about
bitty
that.
piece, and
I heard that's nice, Michigan City, actually. Yeah, nice area.
lovely.
How did you hear about them?
Also online. So I originally applied to the Coast Guard Reserves. Due to a medical condition, I was not allowed to join, so still have the itch to serve. And
Absolutely.
after finding the auxiliary, it's been a great experience.
Now, how about you?
I've been a sailor since I was a child, and I had a boyfriend that passed away that had a powerboat. And the vessel examiner came to check out the powerboat I bought, and he's like, Becky, you could use your powerboat for Coast Guard patrol, and they'll pay you for gas and reimburse you for some other things. You should check it out. So I joined.
So the rest is history.
And the
as
rest
they
is
say.
history, as they say.
What is the main function, if you were going to tell somebody, of the Coast Guard Auxiliary? Any of you guys, and all you guys can handle that. If somebody were to say, well, what's your main goal? What's your main duty function?
I would say that it's each individual's goals. So there's so many missions that are available to the auxiliary that the main mission for the auxiliary is boating safety. It's also augmenting the active duty. So my role is to focus on augmenting the active duty through watch standing and boat crew for patrols.
What would watch standing be?
Watch standing is a role at the station or on a vessel where you are in control of the radio facility at the station or on the vessel, but you also serve as communicators with vessels when they're underway. So if the active duty take a boat out, you maintain radio communication with the crew. There's a time frame that you are required to check in with them. Usually it's every half hour, but there's certain times where it's every 15 minutes. And you can also maintain radio communications with the helicopter. So yeah, that's what
Well,
I'm
that's
into so
interesting.
far.
I didn't know auxiliary did that much. So now, are you actually on the Coast Guard vessel with them?
You're at the station
Okay.
in control of their radio.
So basically like a dispatcher? I mean, I hate to
Yes.
use that. So if somebody were to call in and say, hey, listen, I got a problem on the phone, you would radio the boat? Do they call them boats?
We we do, but we try to say facility as for an active duty boat or an auxiliary boat,
Okay.
or vessel for if it was a mariner calling in. But yeah, boat's fine.
Yeah. And the larger boats are cutters.
Okay. Now, what do you do? Does everybody? You are more inspection and kind of cruising around, or I know that's kind of makes it sound simple and it's not, but
Well, with what I said about how I got to be interested in the Coast Guard was, of course, I had this brand new powerboat to me, and it was, yeah, what are you going to do with it? So a little bit more than just offering. You have to offer your boat, but you have to go through some qualifications. It took me a year to do my crew, which is what we're helping Chris get through, and then about a year and a half to do my coxswain. So I had the boat, I got my coxswain qualifications, and then offered my boat and got a vessel exam, which is a little bit more than what we do with a recreational boater. And then I put in for patrol orders through the Coast Guard station. Spent a lot of time downtown with the fireworks, concerts. We go out, we train as much as the Coast Guard does so that we're ready to react to any kind of call that might come in.
now are you involved in rescues then?
The only thing I've really done is tow a boat that
Okay.
somehow has had a failure on it and tow them to a safe harbor.
So then you'll do inspections.
That's a different qualification. You become a vessel examiner.
Okay.
We take a class, we take a test, and then we go out and get on boats that we are given permission to get on. It's a voluntary inspection. Nothing happens. You
So-
either pass it or you don't.
So what would happen on a typical when you're on patrol? What would you do typically?
I, as the coxswain, am in charge of my boat. I'm
Okay.
responsible for everything that happens on my boat, no matter what's going on. I make sure that my crew can do every job on the boat. Set up some trainings, be it man overboards, the several search patterns we have to do, and look at the ATONs, go to different clubs and show our face. And it's amazing who's out at their boats during the weekdays and things. And we get called aside and asked a lot of questions. So we try to service the community with the knowledge that we've attained.
So boater knowledge, you try to. Okay.
Yeah, and the Coast Guard Auxiliary was chartered by Congress in 1939, and it was actually a precursor to the military reserves in the Coast Guard. And in 1996, the Coast Guard bill in 1996 opened the auxiliary up to do anything that the active duty does except for law enforcement. So we don't get shipped off to war. We don't carry weapons, but we are allowed to do anything that active duty Coast Guard does and train for that.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. So you have a division that would do rescues then? Some of your auxiliary members go out and rescue people if they call in and are in distress?
Rescue is
Or is that a different division?
no. That's we are trained to do that, but rescuing is sort of recruitment poster kind of things. The rescues don't happen nearly as often as you think.
Yeah, I guess I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, because even been on how many times, usually you call the towboat, right?
Exactly. And that's a thing with the Coast Guard. And I don't want to speak for the Coast Guard, but because of commercial salvage, the Coast Guard has a relationship with local marine salvage and doesn't want to take their livelihood away. So really the Coast Guard is only going to rescue someone if they are in immediate danger.
Okay, that makes sense.
And all else goes to marine salvage. So most of the calls out there that even Chris as a watchstander that he will receive, probably 80% of those will get passed off to marine salvage. So it behooves boaters to have marine insurance. If you pay for it 10 years, you use it once, it pays for itself.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive to get towed when you don't have tow insurance.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So the Coast Guard and the auxiliary really are only for, in true emergency situations.
Okay.
They'll do a rescue.
See, initially, before you said anything, I thought maybe since you have your own boat, I thought you had to have a boat to be member of the auxiliary, and obviously that's not the case.
Prior to 1996, you did.
Really?
Yeah. Prior to 1996, you had to either be an owner of a radio facility, like a ham radio
Yeah,
station,
okay.
an airplane, or a boat.
That's interesting. I would not have known that. Now, when you do patrols, I know I've seen you on. Do you do nights also, or is it just during daylight, or how does that work?
Yes, I do nights. That'll take me downtown to be around the concerts or the fireworks.
Yeah, I know. I went down one time with my son's boat for fireworks. I would never do it again. It was just, the traffic was just ridiculous and people not paying attention. And it's like, have you ever driven a boat before kind of stuff? And I said, that's it. I would never do it again. I'd never. I didn't. I mean, it was kind of cool in a way. Actually, it wasn't as fun as I thought it would be. I think I'd just go sit on the shore next
I was going to say,
time.
could you hear them? Could you see them?
I didn't hear about. You mean hear the booms or just? Yeah, you could hear
Well,
them, but we were. But the thing is, people kept cutting in front of you going back. And,
Yeah.
And we weren't going that fast. So, but I mean, and as we all know, there are no brakes on the boat. So, but I made a big error too. I didn't shut off. I needed to shut off more of the lights because I had accidentally left some of the lights on. Now, once I got my night vision back, then it was a lot easier. But
Yeah, and you know what else is that the fireworks, I think, draw first-time boaters. Or I just bought this boat. We're going to take it out for the first time. Let's do the fireworks.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
seems to draw first time out.
Now, how many Coast Guard auxiliary members would you say are? Now, you're attached to a station, is that right? Like if you're in the auxiliary, are you like attached to a station? Like, is that what that's called downtown?
Yeah, it's not required, but typically it is.
Okay.
Auxiliarists do have outlets with a Coast Guard station, and we're interesting here in Toledo because we have both a marine safety unit, which is downtown, and then we have the small boat station up here in the Point.
So, how many auxiliary members would you estimate there are in this area?
Oh,
Toledo has approximately 35.
That's a good number.
And also in our division is Marblehead, and they're just north of 30 as well.
How many would you want to have? What would be an optimum number? Or is there as many as you can get? I mean, what would be an optimum number?
As many active members as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the more the better.
absolutely.
Right. And like in any organization, it's okay, you belong. What is your purpose and what are your goals?
The 20-80 rule, huh? 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Yeah.
Yep.
How do you become a member? Let's say somebody found us on this show and says, okay, I like the water. I'm interested in military kind of stuff like you said. I would love to give back to the community. How do they become a member? What would they do? Is that the right term, member?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our auxiliarist.
Are you the man?
I guess so.
All right, you go for it. Give you a little pitch.
So if you know the flotilla and you have contacts, you can contact any flotilla or there's an online system that you can apply for, and a member will reach out to you after receiving notification. I did the online because I didn't know anything about the auxiliary, and shortly after, Kathy here contacted me and conducted an interview. There's a little bit of homework involved to kind of pique your interest, to make sure that this is something that you want to get involved with.
Like what kind of homework?
There's some questions, so you kind of read a brief description of what the auxiliary does.
Okay.
And
So they want to know. They want you to know what you're getting into before you spend all the time. I mean,
Correct.
that makes sense.
it doesn't count towards anything if you don't answer them correctly, but at least gets some kind of ideas to you about what the auxiliary does. And after that, you kind of have to pass a background check. And after all that clears, you can dig in.
Now, you said it helps you know what the auxiliary does. Let me ask you this. Were there things that the auxiliary did that you went, wow, I didn't know that?
Absolutely.
Tell me what those were.
There's countless missions that the auxiliary can do. I mean, Kathy, how many missions do you think there is?
I'm going to safely say there's probably over 70 different things you could do.
Oh, my word.
I was just talking to someone who's in the auxiliary from Singapore yesterday, and
They're in Singapore now?
they're in Singapore now.
How did you talk to them?
Zoom.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. It was 10 p.m. their time. It was 9 a.m. our time.
All right.
But no, a ton of different qualifications. You see my hat. Play bagpipes, and I'm in the Coast Guard
Did you
pipe
bring 'em?
band. I did not.
I would like to
Another
hear
time.
that.
Another time.
Actually, I'll have you back. You can play.
There you go. There you go. But so the gentleman in Singapore is in our international affairs directorate. So we have interpreters. If you can speak or read fluently a foreign language, we send interpreters all over the world, literally, as auxiliarists, and they interpret for the Coast Guard and for the Navy.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. There's marine safety things where you can be a freighter inspector. You could inspect freighters for safety things. Of course, there's the operations side, which is the planes and the boats and
Those people
the
are all
radios.
volunteer?
All volunteer. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is. And now some things that you do, like I talked about the interpreters, when you're under orders, then you'll get a per diem,
Okay.
and they'll pay for your food and lodging, or at least food and lodging is covered. So you don't make money as an auxiliarist, but there are some things that when you're called under orders, then you do get reimbursed for basic living
Travel?
expenses.
They pay for their travel?
Yes.
too? Oh,
Yes.
That's reasonable.
We have cooks. Cooks are huge. We have several cooks on Arctic icebreakers right now, on a 6-month mission to Antarctica. And so, if you enjoy cooking, the Coast Guard really loves auxiliary culinary arts specialists, and you get the same training that active duty does. And of course, you don't make money doing it, but you could be on the Cutter Mackinac in the Great Lakes and cook for them, or you could be on a cutter in Alaska. And there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity
As
out
soon
there.
as you said Arctic, you lost me. I'm a warm weather boater. Let me just tell you.
Okay, well,
that.
you could do the Caribbean too. You could do a cutter in the Caribbean.
Ooh. What kind of medical training now? Do you guys? I assume you all have to be CPR certified. No? Yes?
No.
Interesting. So no medical training is required. I know a lot of you have it.
Right.
I mean,
it's
I'm
not
trying
required,
to-
and it depends on what qualifications you do. Like I said, there's over 70 things that we could do. Some of those things, they all have certain requirements, and some of those do have a medical requirement to them.
Mm-hmm.
Other things, like there's no weight or PT physical training that auxiliaries have to do just to be a member of the auxiliary. But there are some qualifications you could learn how to do and get qualified in that you do need to make, push-ups, sit-ups, a swim or a run, and you have to make a certain kind of weight.
What about age requirements?
You only have to be older than 17.
So
And
you
there's
could have
no
a 95-year-old doing this?
Yes.
I bet there are. I'm
There
sure
are.
out there.
Yes, they are. Yep.
What's the oldest person you have in Toledo?
Ooh, I'm going to say 80.
Okay. Okay. Now, was that a former military person, or they just?
No,
Well, do you get? That's a good question, I guess. Do you get people who were maybe in the Coast Guard and then say, I'd like to serve in the auxiliary, or does that normally not happen that way?
there are some. Obviously, if you spent a career working for the Coast Guard, some people retire from the Coast Guard and don't want to see it again, and others
that's
really kind
understandable.
of yeah, exactly, and others really miss it and still want to contribute. So we have some, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess it's like any other job. Now, have you ever gotten to go out in the helicopter?
No.
Do you want to?
Yes. I want to be in the basket.
Can you work on that? Can somebody do? If anybody's listening, if you can put Becky in the basket, you will probably get a free dinner and maybe a bottle of wine. Maybe they can get you in the basket. Okay, that you can't make that happen.
I don't know. Our helicopter comes out of Detroit.
Okay.
It's up to the Coast Guard and what we train with them and what we get to do for them. But yeah.
That would be pretty cool to be in the basket.
It would be cool.
I gotta tell you. Now, how many boat inspections would you say you did last summer?
I did between 15 and 20 boat
Okay.
inspections.
Okay.
We try to go into some of the clubs. We always do Harrison's over Memorial Day weekend. I have my boats up at Lost Peninsula Marina, so everyone that docks around me is one of my vessel exams, which makes it nice because they all know what to expect from me, and they're a little more prepared than if someone says, hey, can you check my boat out? And they're free, and you get a little decal to put on your port side so that any law enforcement that comes around can see that you've gone through a vessel exam. It's not going to stop them from coming aboard your boat, but it at least shows that you've done your due diligence and your boat is safe at that particular moment when you had your vessel exam done.
Would there be one item that you would say that people are missing the most?
Not really. I've seen issues with lights, frayed lines, and things that are expired. Your
I was gonna say,
flares and
Flares.
things of that sort. Looking in their engine compartment, we look at those things kind of hard to make sure, there's not rust or especially in a power boat, the materials that have the exhaust and things in there, make sure it's up to par. Our biggest focus is fire extinguishers. All boats should have fire
Yeah, boat
extinguishers on.
fire. That would be horrible.
So that's it. And it's surprising to the person that's having you do their vessel exam when something comes up. They're usually
My vessel's good. You don't need to look
they're
at it.
disappointed that it didn't quite make it. And with me being around the point and such, they can just get that taken care of, and I'd probably still be in the area the same day. And then once they pass, they're given this decal, and I tell them to keep the paper on the boat. Since the Coast Guard people know me by name, not that it might not help you,
Is that
but
a good thing that they know you by name? or-
yes,
Okay.
they'll have that paper and they'll see that I did the exam, and I don't know if that's any clout or not, but I hope it is.
Now, you said you drill. You guys drill. Did you know what you said? You drill like the Coast Guard does, or not like them, but do your own?
Our
version?
operations.
Okay.
Every time my boat goes out, we will do some type of training
Okay. So
where everybody does that training. If we're doing a tow, maybe Chris will set up the bridle and get the tow and be in charge of that. And then we'll do it, and we'll do it again. And
they
so
get it right.
we rotate the jobs so that we all are aware of what's going on.
I know from working with you, a junior sailor, you are good teaching people to do things. I think that is one of your gifts. I think. Is there a season? I mean, obviously, in the summer, I would think. Are you busier? Well, are you busier in the summer, or you just do different things throughout the year?
well, in the winter is obviously training for us. It's a real good time of year to take care of some of our required training. So every 15 months we have to do something called risk management team coordination training, which is really about mitigating risk and thinking about risk factors. And that's a 4-hour course that if you're in operations, you have to take. And so we take care of a lot of that in the winter. And then obviously, as soon as the water softens, we're out there
I love that. Water softens.
in the boats and out there doing our vessel exams. And next month we'll start doing some public education. So we teach the 8-hour state required class for
Boater safety?
Yeah,
Is that
boater
what it is?
safety class.
Okay.
Yeah. Boat America is the auxiliary version of that.
Okay.
And then we're out there doing stuff during the summer and the fall, and then things take a little bit of break for the holidays, and then they pick back up in January.
Now, you mentioned risk mitigation. Tell me a little bit about what does that mean?
You want to look at, if you're going to go out on a sail, let's say, who are the people on the boat? What do they know where all the safety equipment is on your boat?
Gotcha.
Do they maybe have any medical issues that you need to be aware of and be able to deal with? What time of day are you going out? Do you know? You have to understand the weather. You have to be able to communicate well back and forth as a team and as a crew, and to speak up when you see something maybe getting either a little hypothermic or maybe a little heat strokey, to be able to do that. And so it's just sort of bringing these things up in your mind to remind all of us, that there's an amount of diligence that you have to have in the auxiliary and in the Coast Guard when you're out doing these things that really would absolutely be helpful to a civilian boater as well, just to think about the things that, the maintenance on the boat, what's, going around your boat every time before you go underway, to check the lines, to check your instruments, check the sails, and to mitigate or decrease the
You're doing great explaining.
All right. To decrease the chances that something bad happens.
So this is something you take the mitigate on when you go out on patrol, or
Right.
Okay. Now, is that something that you would offer to civilians? Like Rick's mitigate? See, now I can't say it now. Anyways, how to mitigate risk on your own vessel?
Well, the safe boating course covers that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, do you teach that too, Becky?
No, I do not. Since I'm a teacher by trade, I
get
get
that.
away from the teaching, but I became a vessel examiner because I thought, I get to go on these cool boats that I may or may not ever buy, and I still get to teach through that.
Okay. What about you? Do you get involved in the boater safety course at all?
I have not yet. One of the roles that some of the members can do is an instructor, so it's a qualification that you can get to teach these classes.
Okay.
So yeah.
I gotta believe that. I find it interesting that they grandfathered so many people in, older people, because I got to tell you, I'll bet you the majority of problems come from a lot of people like my age that never had a course. That would be just a guess.
I could see that.
Just because I didn't used to have a license or whatever. They don't call it a license. What do they call it? Certification, I guess you would call it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, because you see people all the time, and you're like, what are you doing? I mean, even when you go out, that's one thing I like about this club is that if you want to learn to sail, there's people here that will go out and sail with you and teach you at least enough so somebody's saying, what are you, being a knucklehead? I still get that sometimes, but but just because you need to be taught, you don't just grow up knowing everything about a boat
Right, and I
or
think
a car or whatever.
Right, and in some of our classes, we'll see the young folks in our public education classes, and their parent or grandparent will come with them, and they don't need the course, but they'll at the end of it say, "Wow, I learned some things I didn't know." So I think it's always a good idea.
Right, and sailing on this end of Lake Erie, things can change very quickly weather-wise. So knowing those things and being prepared, and for us, our training always gets it right in your head. It's not an afterthought. It's right there so that we react and we have that confidence and we can keep the calm. Because if you're the skipper of the boat and something's going a little bit off and one of your crew starts to get a little antsy and things of that sort, they'll look at you to see how you're doing, and they're like, oh, this is okay. I should just take a few breaths and learn from this experience. Every time you go out on a boat, it's a learning experience.
Yeah, I like what you said about they look to you. I know we were out on a sailboat this summer, and it got kind of rough, and one of the kids that never been out before was looking around to see if everybody else was panicking. But then when he saw somebody like dragging their hand in the water and stuff, he was like, oh, there's no reason to be concerned. So you're right. If you got your act together, and even though on the inside you may be running around going, this is bad, you got to keep it wrapped together at least until, yeah. That's good. So I want to become a member, and you said what I would email, is that what we said would be the best way? Somebody says, I'm into this now, and they would email the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and you would contact them or somebody?
Yeah, and actually, the Coast Guard's, the auxiliary's website is
There we go. That's what I wanted.
cgaux.org.
Okay.
And there's a tab on there that is Join Us, and you put in your address and your email, phone number, address, and particularly zip code, and then based on your zip code, you'll be contacted by an auxiliarist that does a pre-screen, because sometimes we have people that they just want a vessel exam. They don't want to join the auxiliary. They're looking for a vessel exam. Well, then we make sure that they get connected to the right people. But if you do want to be joining the organization, then we make sure that you kind of understand what it's all about, and what the expectations are, and then pass them off to a local person.
There you
And then
go.
if you're in this area, it'll be me that calls you up, and we'll have a little chat.
She seems kind of nice, so I think you'll be okay if she calls. Good. I hope you guys get a lot more people. I'm sure you can use more people always.
Always, yes.
Yeah, always. Is there anything else you guys want to add that we didn't cover? This is, your forum. Anything you want to say?
No, I think this is a great new addition to Jolly Roger, having the podcast, getting us, I'm also a member of Jolly Roger, getting us out there, and then bringing in agencies like ourselves and the other interviews that you've been doing. I think it's good for the area. We're here in the Point. We meet at the station when we meet. The guys are great to us. They're very helpful. In the junior program, I actually, with my connection, had a Coast Guard boat come over.
That was awesome,
And
by the way.
the kids really enjoyed
They
being
did.
with the Coast Guard and seeing their boat, and then they hung out on the water, and the kids could sail around them, and the crew of that boat really enjoyed it, and then I passed off a
Maybe
group
we'll get a
picture to 'em.
return this year.
I believe so.
Oh yes,
I believe so.
that was very nice to have them here. I appreciate that, and I know the kids did too. Well, if there's nothing else, I tell you what, thank you guys for coming.
Thanks
and
for
I
having
would
us.
like to see, you mentioned maybe see if we get some active duty people in here.
Absolutely.
That would be pretty awesome too. And if you guys want to come back at that time, it doesn't matter. We can have a big party and on air. So thank you very much for coming, and have a great evening, guys.
Thanks so much.